sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. My name is Virginia Jones. I'm a stand-up comic. I named this podcast My Sister's a Therapist because my co-host is my sister and she is a therapist.
Hello, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but my main credit is sister to Virginia Jones, the queen of comebacks.
Mm-hmm. Both of my sisters have advanced degrees. I don't because I have what is known as an art degree. And people who get advanced art degrees are weirdos.
Well, I think they're usually professors, right?
Right. You can teach. There is no reason in the world that I can think of. You can write us your letters and give us your thoughts, but I can't think of a reason to get an advanced apparel design degree.
I don't know. It could be really fun.
I knew one girl who was getting one in fabric design.
That would be cool.
Yeah. No, that's a straight art. That's a straight art. On this podcast, every week, one of us prepares a topic and the other one is unprepared. And this week, Laura has prepared a topic and I'm just whistling Bad Guy by Billie Eilish.
Since it's my topic this week, it comes from the place where most of my topics come from, TikTok. Dr. Laurie Santos was on the Happiness Lab podcast, and this is what she said. Our middle child came home and she said, look, my counselor wants me to join all these clubs and I don't want to join. I'm not like a club person. And I said, okay, well, what's the big deal? Just don't join the clubs. And she said, well, I don't want to disappoint him. And that was a big moment for me. And what I told her is we need to just walk around every day with the express goal of disappointing everyone. That should be not something we avoid, but something we strive for, because even that word disappoint, think about it. It's like disappointing someone else as the decision maker of your life and reappointing yourself. So I said, oh, honey, you've got to disappoint your counselor. You've got to disappoint everyone. You don't have to disappoint yourself.
When you told me that story, my first thought was, well, she doesn't know if she's a club person or not. It's very funny to me how kids will negate something they've never tried.
Yes, my son is not a sports person, even though he has never played a sport more than about a week.
But I think the part of this is a great message. And it took me a long time to accept that it was okay to disappoint other people. I'm also kind of worried about this kid's college applications if they're not in clubs, but whatever. That's not my job.
That's Dr. Laurie Santos's job.
That's right. I was talking with my therapist this week about trying to meet other people's needs and not disappoint them. And she said, do you think you're trying to make up for something? And I said, yes, I'm trying to make up for being fat and being a woman.
I think you're also trying to make up for growing up in a super dysfunctional family where we were taught by our parents that our sole job was to make sure that their emotions were okay and not really worry about ourselves.
And that anything that I did was a direct reflection on my mother. So I better do the thing that she wanted me to do. I think most people know what disappointment is, but let's start with Merriam-Webster's. Disappoint, to fail to meet a hope or expectation or to cause disappointment. Laura, how would you define disappointment?
I just like the idea of failing to meet a hope or expectation. The idea behind that is that someone else has expectations of me or hopes for what I should be doing for them. And I'm going to let you down.
Every tall kid disappoints strangers with their complete non-interest in basketball. Every kid who likes to play guitar disappoints their acquaintances with their non-desire to become an internationally touring musician. We're all failing to live up to other people's hopes and dreams about us.
Yes. The word disappoint comes from the Middle French word disappointure, meaning undo the appointment or remove from office.
Yeah, it's a disappointment. I am not dissing the appointment. I am de-appointing. Instead of saying impeach and remove our president, we should just say disappoint our president.
I'm ready to disappoint him big time. I think he's already
pretty disappointed in us. If he knew us, he would be disappointed in us.
Yeah, we haven't been super supportive. Let's be real.
I've got what I'm going to call a listicle to read. Learning to Disappoint People by Emily Lay. When I'm busy being the reliable one, the yes person, the one who never lets anyone down, I'm systematically letting myself down in ways both small and devastating. An overfilled calendar with no room for spontaneity or rest. Is that familiar to us? A deep sense of dread before events I'd committed to, but didn't have the bandwidth to attend. This reminds me of your Fish concert.
Yes, I did that just just this weekend.
I think she committed to going to a Fish concert so far in the future, she thought, surely we'll all be dead by then.
I thought I was going to a festival, and I also thought, oh, well, by then I will have had no social time, not realizing that the weekend prior I was going to have the most social time of any time, and that I really just kind of wanted to rest.
The constant hum of frantic that became my baseline normal, or dreams deferred because there was always someone else's need to meet first.
I've definitely done the last one a lot.
Yeah, that's what parenthood is, to my understanding.
I was thinking about it. I remember even when I wasn't a parent, I was married. He was no contact with his parents. And so he said, well, Christmas is for us. And I said, oh, I couldn't possibly abandon my family for Christmas. And looking back, really probably should have. I remember especially thinking, oh, I can't abandon Emily. She's single and she doesn't have anywhere to go for Christmas. I have to do that for her. When really, I should have probably just gone to Hawaii or something.
I've talked about my overfilled calendar before. Part of it is the desire to stay busy, but also part of this is desire to just not disappoint everybody. And I will think I can do all these things, but I can only do them if everything goes exactly correctly. And I'm going to be in a stress of anxiety and tension all day, because if we don't leave right now, we're not going to be on time for the next thing. And we're not leaving right now because of various things I can't control.
The sentence, the constant hum of frantic that became my baseline normal, that also reminded me of you.
Yes. A thing that my brain does, which is very funny when I am overbooked, is my brain will just start misremembering times. And I tend to move everything up half an hour, but not an hour. So I will show up with something very sure that I'm on time. And then I'll be told, no, you were supposed to be here at 10. I thought it was 10:30.
Oh, so you'll think that you're running early when you're actually running late.
Right. Or I think I'm running on time and I'm running late. I did have one year where I said, I'm going to say yes to everything. And I'm going to say yes to every opportunity. I'm going to say yes to every social thing that is presented to me. And that was a good exercise. But I think part of me never got out of the habit of doing that.
I really do feel like I have a friend who so infrequently says yes that I'm always shocked when she actually does go through with something. I think if you're coming from that direction, I think it is a good exercise to say yes to everything for a while. But I also feel like you have to balance it with your other obligations in your life.
Since I turned 50, I am more forgiving of myself for, like you say, needing to take a quiet weekend after having kind of a busy weekend, or needing to take a quiet night after having a busy night. I am no longer pushing myself to do everything in the world.
Also, it's a retaliation from my marriage. My husband booked every second of our free time. And so I revolt by giving myself huge swaths of time where I do nothing and refusing to book that with anything.
The TikTok kids have called it rotting. But the thing that is rotting, I have been doing for a long time, which is pretend sick. I will say to myself, when I've been busy and I have a day when I don't have anything to do, I will just be pretend sick and I will lay in my bed with my phone, maybe watch television and maybe not, and nap. That's the best time for me. For others, it could look like chronic depression. For me, it looks like a real chill time.
I do it at least 2 days a week and I love it. This was an interesting perspective. Maytal Eyal, PhD, came up with this idea. The article is Self-Silencing is Making Women Sick. So she said, be more disappointing is not a piece of advice most people would pay money to hear, but in my therapy office, it's often the most valuable guidance I can give. My clients are mostly women, and nearly all of them struggle with a fear of disappointing others. Our culture rewards women for being perpetually pleasant, self-sacrificing, and emotionally in control, and it can feel counterintuitive for my clients to say no or firmly assert their wants and needs. But my work is about helping them realize that their health might literally depend on it.
And the thing about sacrificing everything for other people that we are expected to do is no one appreciates it because it's the baseline. I think you shared with me a TikTok that said, the best man is not as good as an average woman. And like,
absolutely,
the man who takes care of his family and earns a living and makes time for his friends. If the bar for men is in the floor, the bar for women is the high bar in the Olympics, all expected to do it all the time.
Just to be a very average woman, you have to be doing 800% at all times.
This is a fun exercise. On Instagram, for wives' birthdays, girlfriends' birthdays, men will frequently post an appreciation post. Read those and count to yourself how many things he's grateful for or just things she does for him. Because that's how they express how great you are. Here's all the tasks you have done for me and you have done for our children. So you're a good wife.
You're a good daughter. You're a good friend. You're a good employee because you're doing 110% at all times. But unfortunately, taking this tack in life is very damaging to women mentally and physically.
Speaking on the same article about health and disappointment, today women account for almost 80% of autoimmune disease cases. They are at a higher risk of suffering from chronic pain, insomnia, fibromyalgia, long COVID, IBS, and migraines, and are twice as likely as men to die after a heart attack. That's also because we're not treated for heart attacks in the same way. Women experience depression, anxiety, and PTSD at twice the rate of men and face a 9-fold higher prevalence of anorexia, the deadliest mental health disorder. That's interesting. I definitely think of eating disorders as being a huge health risk, but I never thought about it in that particular light.
Well, I also didn't know that women had depression, anxiety, and PTSD at twice the rate of men.
Right.
That's nuts.
When we see a man and we're like, wow, still waters run deep. He's so chill. It's because he doesn't have any anxiety. And we can't imagine that.
I'm reading a book right now called Fed Up, and it's about the demands of emotional labor that is required by women to just simply be alive.
I had a fun experience with this week. There's a website that comics put their placard up on, and it's for if you want a comic to come to a party, if you want a comic to perform at your function. And a person connected with me and said, hey, I have a lot of comedy shows I want to plan this summer. So we've been talking about possible shows. I just keep saying, yeah, great. Give me a date. I'll put it on my calendar. He keeps not doing it, but he'll keep in touch with me. And then he wrote me this week and said, I'm sorry, I haven't nailed down a date. My knee hurts and my kid's been acting up, this list of things. Why are you telling me this? And Laura said, well, he was looking for you to feel sorry for him and to do emotional labor. He is not interested in dating me, but he's interested in using me for part of girlfriend activity, which is empathy.
He wants you to meet his emotional needs because you're a woman.
And I just said, let me know when you have a date. I'll see if I can do it.
That's literally the premise of this book. It's men require women to manage their emotional lives, but also to manage their entire social calendar, their children's calendars. This woman sat down with her husband and they each wrote down all of their jobs in the house. And she said she was even shocked at how much crap she was doing. For example, this week, I had to remember, when is swim day for camp? When is the day that we go on a field trip? Because I have to have his
pack
stuff
a lunch,
packed.
right?
Pack a lunch. Where is the cord for his electric lunch pail? Because I got that for him for his birthday so he could have hot lunches. That was dumb.
Just giving yourself more work. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, now he's saying, well, what can I eat for lunch? It has to be hot. So I have to figure that out too? Come on, man.
Has to be hot. Let me tell you, Gen X talking to my Gen Alpha nephew, when I was doing school trips, the most exciting thing in the world was to have a Coke wrapped in aluminum foil. Did it work? No, but it was very exciting. This Coke is going somewhere.
If your parent really made the effort, which sometimes our dad did, he would wrap it in a paper towel and then put aluminum foil around said towel.
Oh, I don't know if I ever got that treatment.
That's how you got to do it. Every day, it's a new thing I have to do. And then I have to get myself ready. And then I have to remember, oh, the cleaning lady's coming. She might come on Wednesday. She might come on Thursday. She never tells me. So I have to have the house ready to be cleaned on either day. This is from the same article. It seems that the very virtues our culture rewards in women, agreeability, extreme selflessness, and the suppression of anger, may predispose us to chronic illness and disease. In the late 1980s, Harvard-trained psychologist Dana Jack identified a recurring theme among female patients suffering from depression, a tendency to self-silence, defined as the, quote, propensity to engage in compulsive caretaking, pleasing the other, and the inhibition of self-expression in relationships in an attempt to achieve intimacy and meet relational needs, end quote.
Laura knows that I am on a health journey in this, my 52nd year. A very nice company, because I'm a very important influencer on TikTok, gave me blood work, the weirdest gift.
Other people's blood work?
Luckily, no, it's my own. They said, this product, and I am sponsored by Function Health. They said, we're going to give you this package that is worth $500. And the first thing you need to do is give us 24 vials of blood.
That's a lot of blood.
One of my things that came back is I don't have an autoimmune disease now, but my blood says it's coming. Everything else that's on my bad list is you need to take this supplement. You need to exercise more. The autoimmune disease one is you need to de-stress. You need to sleep more and you need to meditate.
So when are you going to do that?
I'm going to figure it out. But there's a very clear line between stressing yourself out, overcommitting yourself, putting your needs last, and developing an autoimmune disorder. Also, let me tell you, when women have fibromyalgia, people act like it's not real. Chronic pain, doctors will act like it's not real. Long COVID, many people are willing to tell you that it's not real. The things that affect women are not medically important.
What I hear you saying is that, like a genie in a bottle, your mind says no, but your body and your blood say go when it comes to autoimmune disease.
It's hard to parse, but yes, that's essentially it. But like
a genie in a bottle, baby, come on and let me out.
The genie is going to have sex with you if you just let her out of the bottle.
The blood work is going to say, autoimmune girl,
let's go. It is interesting because we've been hearing for a long time that meditation and therapy and relaxation is a part of your health program. I don't think I thought of it as literally affecting my health before. You got to take time to chillax. My exercise ring also tells me that I need to meditate and keeps a chart of my stress and says, hey, you're stressed today. Guess what? It's days where I've committed to too many things.
For the listener, another way to meditate would be to do hypnotherapy. Give me a call if you live in the state of Texas.
In March of 22, a team of researchers at the University of Pittsburgh discovered that women of color who strongly agreed with statements like, I rarely express my anger to those close to me, were 70% more likely to experience increased cardiovascular plaque associated with higher risk of heart attack. Other studies have connected self-silencing to IBS, HIV, chronic fatigue syndrome, and cancer among women. And women of color are even more prone to this stuff because they don't want to be the angry Black woman. They don't want to be the stereotype. They want to exceed expectations. But Black women have every GD reason to be angry, and they should be angrier.
I feel like Black women in our society are the people who are most pressed to make themselves small, to make themselves quiet, and to people please in every interaction.
Because it's the way to keep themselves safe.
So when women push their feelings down and cast their needs aside, their health suffers. But it can be difficult for women to do otherwise in a culture that celebrates their self-silencing practices. While young women are praised for, quote, being chill, end quote, moms are revered for being painstakingly altruistic to the point of self-abnegation. These unspoken standards establish a vicious cycle. For many women, it feels easier, beneficial even, to silence their needs at the expense of their own health, rather than swim against the prevailing cultural current. In the book Fed Up, this is one of the points that she makes. She says, every day has the opportunity to pick a huge fight with her husband. What's that thing of pick your battles? So she's talking about one day where she's working from home and he has committed to care for their child for the day. And she says, okay, I have exactly 20 minutes before my next meeting. I'm going to make myself a quick sandwich and then I'm going to head back. And she comes into the living room and the house looks like it's exploded because he's been caring for their son, but he hasn't picked up anything. He hasn't put anything away. She said there's crayons and milk and blah everywhere. And she feels like she doesn't have the right to complain.
Because he's being very literal. I am keeping this child alive. That is what you have asked me to do. That kid is still alive.
I fed him. We had activities. We're going for a bike ride, which is why we're not in the house right now. But I haven't really done my part for the relationship or for our family. And if you say anything, then I'm going to call you a nag because I'm doing more than the bare minimum expected of men.
And I am a hero. And as we discussed in an upcoming episode, in Pilgrim times, if you were a nag, they would take a piece of metal and clamp it onto your tongue.
Good times.
Good times. And that's part of the training. If a caterpillar is electrocuted while on a dark surface, and then he liquefies and becomes a butterfly, that butterfly will remember not to alight on dark surfaces. Even though he's been liquid and he was down to his amino acid proteins, he will remember that. And I think that we have generational memories and intergenerational trauma. People who came from the people who survived the Irish potato famine have a lot of problems around food, on having enough. I think it's possible that if your great-great-great-grandmother had a piece of metal clamped onto her tongue so she would shut up, you might be real prone to shut up.
If you're interested in finding out more about epigenetics, refer back to our cycle breaking episode with our guest, Evelyn Vieira.
Epigenetics is when you have an EpiPen that puts genetics into your body.
No, epigenetics is when I have a trauma and I pass that trauma genetically down to my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. I'm going to reference the article, Don't Let Me Down, How to Get Over the Fear of Disappointing Others by Elizabeth Perry. Here are some ways that you might be afraid of disappointing others and how it's affecting your life. You're avoiding conflict. A difficult coworker won't stop speaking over you in a meeting. Instead of confronting them afterward, you choose to keep it to yourself because you don't want to upset them. In the long run, this only deprives you of the opportunity to show off your skills and add value to your team. You say what you think people want to hear. You said yes to an extra project because you thought that's what your boss wanted from you, but you already have a list a mile long. Now you're working too much and risking burnout because you couldn't say no.
From what I know of office culture, the good girl who takes on extra stuff does not get rewarded. The loudmouth who reminds you of everything that they have accomplished gets rewarded. Your boss sees about 10% of your work. That's what they probably observe. Doing a bunch of work is actually not the solve. It's talking loudly about cool stuff that you have done or that other people have done and you think you can take credit for.
And apparently interrupting people during meetings to talk about it. But I understand that inclination. I've been in situations where there are noisy people who are interrupting me, and I don't want to come off as a bee.
Let's talk about other kinds of disappointment. You can't disappoint your boss for a lot of time because you will lose your job. But you can totally disappoint the lady in your choir. You can totally disappoint a person at a volunteer opportunity that you took just as an individual contributor and you don't want to manage the team. I'm not speaking from personal experience.
You can disappoint the head of the PTA who really wants you to bake 6 dozen cookies by the end of the week.
The casualness with which these people, and it's not really their fault because they're not given enough money to run their schools by the government, which is the government's job. The casualness with which these people ask professional women, many of whom do not bake, to come up with a bakery level of cookies on a Wednesday is astounding to me. If someone asked me to bake 6 dozen cookies, I would say, I've never done that and I'm never going to do that.
I remember running into the head of the PTA recently, and she was telling me about all of the end of school year activities that she was in charge of and responsible for. And I said, you're reminding me of why I've never joined the PTA.
And there's opportunities you're going to miss out because you're not in that. There's friendships you won't have, but it's also a huge workload that as a single mom running her own business, you just don't have. You don't got it.
Especially since I have to spend my weekends rotting on the couch.
Yes, that's important. For women who have been unconsciously taught to view our likability as our greatest asset, boundary setting can often feel counterintuitive. Many of us fear that if we honestly communicate our needs and limitations, this will threaten our relationships. And it will. When you start setting boundaries, people who are around to use you will peel off like Mario Andretti. They will be gone. He's a race car driver. To reshape the virtues of womanhood, a new normal needs to emerge, one in which we honor our emotions, prioritize our needs, and actively communicate our boundaries. It's a message you see all the time. When you start setting boundaries, you will lose people, but you will lose people who were not the best for your well-being.
And you'll upset people and you'll make people mad at you. But what I've learned in this life is that someone being mad at me is not the worst thing that could ever happen.
And it's just their opinion. Let's say someone's mad at me right now. I'm sure they are. It doesn't affect my life at all. People can think whatever they want. I'm just in my room, listening to The Cure.
It's that old saying of what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Adversity is a part of life.
Keep in mind that the man who said that blew his brains out in a cabin, okay?
Well, he wasn't stronger.
Take it with a grain of salt. To a degree, disappointing others is inevitable. You need to learn to let go of that fear to better put yourself first. The people who love you will understand that sometimes you just can't handle everything by yourself, and then that's okay. Learning how to say no is a strength, and you should be proud of your ability to set healthy boundaries and prioritize tasks on your to-do list. You can't please everyone.
I would like to tattoo, I can't please everyone, to my own face and to the faces of every woman that I know.
There's a very important woman who has established a fantastic club on TikTok for perimenopausal and menopausal women. Her name is Melanie Sanders, and it is the We Do Not Care Club. The We Do Not Care Club is about disappointing everyone. all the time. You have reached burnout and you do not have the hormones to put into these emotions anymore, and you do not care. We do not care if our hair does not look good when we are at the school pickup. If you wanted a prettier mother, you should have been born to her. We do not care what you have for dinner. You're making it yourself because we do not care to cook. Now everyone is sending in the things that they do not care about. They do not care if they're wearing a matching bra and panties. They do not care what you wear to school. And everybody has a long list of things that they're just deciding not to care about.
I think that's one of the gifts of middle age. You run out of energy, especially when you're raising children. There's just not much left. After you've nagged someone 15,000 times to pick his socks up off the floor, you just don't have the energy or care to make sure you look presentable in public.
When you do a lot of vintage shopping, especially when you're looking at clothing from the 50s, there are two types of apparel for women. Dresses that you're going to go to work in if you have a job, or you're going to go to your brunch in, your tea. You have to wear a corset because the waist is so tiny. It's all tiny, tiny, tiny and beautiful and new look and giant skirts and Donna Reed and all that. And then there's the house dress, which is what you actually live your life in. Conservatives, women did not look like that all the time. That was the result of spending a lot of time getting dressed for bridge club to do something social. What you were really living in was a house dress that was functional and that you could do your chores in.
You were hoping for Judy Garland, but you ended up with Mrs. Roper. That's a reference to a television show that my son thinks is boring and weird called Three's Company. I'm going to read from Kate O'Brien's article, When You Have a Fear of Disappointing Others. Sometimes the fear of disappointing others can come from growing up in a family where there were a lot of expectations put on you. Perhaps you were a caretaker and you were rewarded for helping others. Perhaps you felt responsible for the happiness of others in your family because there were other difficult dynamics at play. It's not uncommon for kids to want to make caregivers happy, especially when their caregivers are stressed in other ways. Can you relate to that?
No.
A lot of my people pleasing and caregiving crap comes from the fact that I was caregiving my parents and I was people pleasing my parents and I was trying to be the best daughter in the family.
And you win. I've given up long ago. You can have it. I'm delighted for you to have it.
The rewards are really pretty low.
Limited. So this quote is, I want to remind you that fear of letting others down can be a natural outcome. That fear has probably helped protect you in some way or many ways. It may have helped you feel loved. It may have helped you survive in your community. There is space to be grateful for how that part of you has served you. And if you feel there are ways that is no longer serving you, there's space to let yourself try to make some changes. There's a quote from a film called The Big Lebowski that I used to think was sad or pathetic, but now I see as a great philosophical strength. And that quote is, that's just like your opinion, man. He's a loser. He is post-dating a check for milk 20 years, but he does not care what people think about him. He's on Melanie Sanders' tip.
He's done. He's over it. This cannot be overstated enough. Remember, you can't please everyone. It's impossible to make everyone happy at all times. Remind yourself of this in those moments when you find yourself bending over backwards every which way to please people. Remember that you are not responsible, just like Virginia said, for other people's emotions. Now, I've had many conversations about this idea, and it definitely deserves more nuance than what I just wrote. But I want to remove you from the responsibility of making sure that everybody's emotions are regulated and okay.
I say this all the time. We're not saying don't do nice things for people. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let your love and caring and time and affection pour over people that you care about. Don't do things because some unspoken one is expecting you to do it. And don't do things because you're expecting others to return in kind, because they might not. Do nice things for others because you want to, because it fills your own cup. Don't do it because you feel pressure.
Sometimes we have to do things out of obligation, but I find that for me, I don't do things unless I'm doing it from a full cup. When I think about doing the thing, it stresses me out, then it's a no.
Recently, my ladies' chat is talking about changing bookers at comedy clubs in Los Angeles. And with a year of distance, this looks like such a waste of time. You're not going to get anything from having done a spot at 11:30 p.m. at the Improv. They're going to give you $20 and a free drink. It's not going to move your career. You're only trying to impress other comics. You're only trying to get to the top of this ridiculous prison system pecking order. All this hanging out at the club, all this doing shows at the club and making money for the club and hoping the club books you, which doesn't work. They'll gladly take your money. There's all this stuff, and it's not going to improve your career. The last time someone discovered someone in a nightclub, I think it was Adam Sandler in 1980. That part of comedy is over. I was looking at my own comedy calendar recently. I picked up a couple spots that I didn't ask for, which is always nice and appreciated. But I was looking at it, I'm like, well, is this enough? And then I thought, enough for what? Who are you trying to impress? You're doing comedy, and you've said many times you're doing comedy because you want to, and because it fills your cup, and because it's your favorite endeavor, and because it's your art form. There's no such thing as enough. No one's judging you, or maybe they are. There's no grade for this.
And no one's opinion regarding this matters.
I watched a very sad documentary about Joan Rivers, and she was terrified when she had free space on her calendar. Of course, she was making her living from it. It made me really sad that even at that point in her career where she was officially a legend, everybody knew her. She had her own TV shows. She'd appeared on late night many times. Even at that level, she still is compulsively trying to fill space on her calendar. You can move with kindness and empathy towards others while still making the right choices for yourself. Ultimately, it is the responsibility of the person with the challenging feelings to find ways to cope and regulate their own experience. You might start by asking for something different for dinner than what your partner requests. It could mean saying no to a social gathering. It might mean when a coworker asks you to do something for them, letting you know that you don't have the bandwidth right now. Notice that while it may be uncomfortable, it is survivable. It is uncomfortable to tell people no, but I think it's an important life skill. How are you going to really excel at what you do and really put your all into your art form, work, child rearing, whatever it is that is your focus? How are you going to do that if you've also volunteered to drop off the kids at soccer practice? How are you going to do that if you've also committed to running in a half marathon to raise money for kids to go to Spain? How are you going to do that stuff? There's a quote about Stanley Kubrick that was in a part of an exhibit at the LACMA that has stayed with me. It said, Stanley Kubrick probably could not have worked in the social media landscape of today. The amount of time and focus he put in his projects, if he also had to promote on Twitter and he also had to do talk shows, for example, or he also had to do public appearances, he would not have had the ability to focus in on the details that make his film so special.
I think he would have had time for TikTok lives. This is from the same article. I also want to let you know, if it makes people uncomfortable when you express a wish or need, that does not mean that you shouldn't express it. Your needs are just as important as the needs of others. It can be utterly exhausting trying to live your life for the happiness of other people. I want to remind you that your needs are important. You're allowed to express your wishes and desires, and there are people who will love and accept you through the disappointments and challenges.
I'm going to repeat what I think is a really important line from that quote. Your needs are just as important as the needs of others. Guess what? You're a person just like other people.
If me setting a boundary with you, telling you that I can't host your baby shower, if that's the final straw in our relationship, then so be it. If your relationships are built on something solid, then there are going to be moments where there's ruptures, and there's going to be moments where you're going to make me mad and I'm going to make you mad. And that's got to be okay.
But if your relationships are built on other people enjoying that you will do anything for them, it is for the best that those go.
That's not a real relationship. That's not a give and take. That's one-sided.
I have a quote from Elizabeth Perry. Title is Don't Let Me Down, How to Get Over a Fear of Disappointing Others. When someone comes to you and say, hey, Laura, I need to go to the airport on Wednesday. It's at 4:00 in the morning and the airport is 3 hours away. Can I count on you to drop me off?
No, you can't.
You cannot. And they're disappointed. Give others permission to feel. People have agency over their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. You can't control them, nor do you have the right to. Let them feel their emotions because they have nothing to do with you. Their disappointment is their business. They're free to process it as they see fit. I'm going to repeat that part. I think that's super important. Other people's emotions about me don't mean they're right. Doesn't mean they're relevant. They can have whatever emotions they want. It doesn't mean I'm going to get up and go take them to the airport at 4 a.m.
It's important to know that if you have relationships that are worth anything, you're going to disappoint people. From the same article, consider the costs of your fear. Every time you make a decision, you must evaluate your needs in relation to the moment's needs. If your colleague asks for a favor, but you're already swamped, you might need to say no. But if your best friend needs help moving and you have free time, your decision may be different. Be mindful in your daily life. Things are going to change. Things are not always going to be applicable. Stuff is going to be different all the time.
When someone asks you for something, if you want to do it, check in and say, do I have the time? Do I have the energy? And if you do, say yes. And if you don't want to do it, say no. Doing things that you don't want to do is a recipe for unhappiness. Because guess what? We only have so much time on this planet, and doing stuff you don't want to do takes time away from the stuff you do want to do.
I recently had a super packed weekend, and someone invited me to do an outing right in the middle of it. And I said no, because although I'd like to go swimming, I know that I'm not going to have time to get ready for the evening event that I'm going to. Sometimes we got to say no.
Another suggestion is flip the script with reversed empathy. If you asked your friend for a favor, but they said no because they're sick, you probably wouldn't give it a second thought. In fact, you may even be happy they're taking time to rest. Why wouldn't they extend the same compassion to you? They probably do. Don't let your fear make you assume the worst in people. If someone said, oh no, I can't do that, for whatever excuse they have, I don't sit at home and think, sons of beaches, they can't do this thing I wanted them to do. I just move on to the next person.
Yeah, we understand that there are lots of limitations in life and you can't do everything. You don't need to master your fear all at once. Instead of jumping into big decisions that affect another person, you can start by practicing in lower stake situations. Try giving constructive feedback to a colleague, even if you wouldn't normally. This will help you to work out your anti-disappointment muscle.
And now we come down to the advice that Laura always gives. Just comes back to this touchstone. This quote is, consider psychotherapy. Your desire to please others might come from places you're unaware of. Whether you experienced unfair expectations in childhood or suffered from an abusive relationship, a mental health professional can help you work through these feelings to let go of your fear.
Virginia, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
I think of labor in all parts of our life. I think if every woman stopped doing extra stuff that didn't benefit her or her family tomorrow, the world would fall apart. It's a lot like days where we encourage migrant workers to not go to work, which is almost impossible. Every service industry, every restaurant, every hotel would fall apart without their labor. But polite society is held together with unpaid labor of women.
And prisoners.
And I think that would be revolutionary because it would show us, one, how much stuff women take on and how unfair it is. And two, what out of this is necessary? What out of this is beneficial? And if it's that important, why aren't we paying someone to do it? To my understanding, we still have more women than men listening to this podcast. So men, sorry, this isn't for you. Maybe it's a nice reminder for you to think about all the things you expect your girlfriend to do without even asking. You kind of expect her to keep the house tidy. But why though? And for women, really look at your commitments and what you can let go of in order to take care of yourself a little bit. I think we're all doing too much. It's not good for your mental health and it's not good for your physical health. And guess what? Those are the same thing. Laura, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, I also think it's not good for your relationships because when a woman gets super resentful, she's going to take it out on the people she loves, and nobody wants that. I think back to the strike in Iceland where all the women refused to go to work for, I think it was 2 days until they got their demands met. I feel like we should do something like that now.
One thing that Iceland has over us is they have about 45 people. So it is a lot easier to organize. Maybe we can petition for a quiet revolution where everyone listening to this podcast, and we know it's thousands of people,
hundreds of thousands
of people. When people ask you stuff or imply that you should do something, just really take a moment and consider it. Do I have time for this? Do I want to do this? Or is it okay if that task goes to someone else?
I think it's letting go of this idea that I have to please other people, that I have to make other people happy, and learning that making myself happy is actually pretty good.
And also, let's expand the realm of disappointments. It is okay to disappoint people by not looking the way they want me to. It is okay to disappoint people by being fat and goth and old. Carrie Fisher, rest in power, said that when she got to middle age, the male fans who had grown up reaching their sexual awakening, looking at her in a slave outfit, were angry with her for not being able to, quote, keep that together, for not being able to present how she looked when she was 22 years old for the rest of her life. That's not her responsibility. And it's okay to disappoint others. It is okay to disappoint people with what you choose to do with your free time. Not to say live your life with no concern for others, but live your life with less concern for others.
It's really important to go back to that oxygen mask on the airplane. You need to have yours on first before you can help other people. If I'm not getting my basic needs met, then weird stuff's going to happen.
Laura, where can people find you on the internet should they wish to do so?
If you'd like to work with me professionally, you can find me at lauraryan.org. If you're interested in my rapidly growing TikTok account, I'm now boasting 825 followers. You can find me at I am Laura Ryan on TikTok. If you're interested in following the show, you can go to my Sisters the Therapist Instagram page. We also have our own website, called mysistersatherapist.com. Virginia, if people want to find you in your comedy career, how would they do that?
You can find me and a calendar of my upcoming dates and a list of what I think are humorous essays and links to my TikTok and my Instagram and everything else by going to www.badInia.com. You can find my TikTok at badInia.com. You can find my Instagram at Virginia. If you would like to hire us to promote Function Health, Waterloo Sodas, or Imperfect Foods, you can reach us at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com. If you have a comment, a question, or a compliment, you can write us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. And as always, the best way to reach us and to take a little jet rocket right into our heart is by leaving a comment for our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Laura, this is the part in the podcast where sometimes you do read a nice comment someone has left for us or a review. Do you have one to share this week?
I certainly do. This message is from RWS. Hello, RWS. This is a listener email. Hello, MSAT. I just wanted to let you know that I listened to the No New Friends episode and I found it super enlightening. Friendships are important and they typically fall by the wayside when romantic engagement becomes possible for me. It brought a lot into focus for me and helped me understand that it feels hard to prioritize friendships because the pressure society sets, but I'm going to make a bigger effort. Thanks. Thanks, RWS.
Yeah. There's a through line in so many of our podcasts. Really question the things that other people are telling you.
Question what society says is important. And you said something about they typically fall by the wayside when a romantic engagement becomes possible for you. That doesn't have to be the case. That's a choice. Keep making good choices.
Speaking of good choices, someone who could have made better choices was Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn. But he did give us our motto, which is, we can make it, baby.
Me and you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.